Good morning, everyone. This is Mohammed, and it's Friday morning, 8:30 London time, and it's the fourth day of Ramadan. So it's a very special day, as it's the first Friday of Ramadan. So it's a great feeling. All right. So what I'm doing in this video? In this video, I'm gonna solve the task 2 of week 108, which is bell numbers. The task is write a script to display the top 10 bell numbers, and it says for more information go to this wiki page. So this is the Wikipedia page for bell number. So let's try to figure out what exactly is bell numbers. Okay, I must admit I have no clue what the bell number is, so I rely on this Wikipedia page for the finer details. The first thing I noticed this animated graph image, which kind of give me a vague idea of bell number. Looks like we need to create a triangle first, which is called bell triangle, or they call it PS triangle. I call it bell triangle. And the way it's generating the row is looks like you start with number 1, and the following row would be start again with the last element of the previous row, which is 1, and the consecutive element on each row would be calculated by summing the previous element of the current row and the previous row. Not clear? Okay, let's write it some code, and then probably that will give you a clear idea. So I'm going to do is with a standard way. So I'm going to start with second task. So let's do user too excited. User bin Perl, use strict, use warning, and I am going to use test more, so let's have that in the beginning, and it's going to end with done testing, so let's put that as well in the place. What else I'm expecting? So the test should be to find out the first top 10, which is, if I go to my task page, I'm going to grab the top 10. Do we have top 10? I think I know the top 10 numbers, so let's put that in my test case. So it's gonna be, maybe not. Let's think of the function that's gonna help me solve this task. So there are two things involved. One is I need to create a triangle, and then using the triangle I need to fetch the bell numbers from the triangle. So creating a triangle is going to be a little tricky, so let's put some documentation. So I'm going to say head 1, I'm going to put cut here. So what I understood from this wiki page, I'm going to just try to explain in my documentation. So what it's saying is you start with 1, and that's your first row. So row 1 will have 1 element, row 2 will have 2 elements, row 3 will have 3 elements, so on and so forth. So first row, first element is fixed, is always 1, and the following rows is you generate using a certain pattern. The pattern is each row first element you get is same as the last element of the previous row. So the last element of the previous row is 1, so that becomes the first row of my current row. And then because this is row number 2, I need to have 2 elements. So the second element of my row 2 would be the sum of the previous column of current row and the previous row, which is 1 plus 1. So that would be 2. So since this is row number 2, you can only have 2 elements. So let's go to the row number 3. So the first element of row number 3 would be the last element of the previous row, which is 2. And the subsequent element is going to be the sum of the previous column of current row and the previous row, which is 2 plus 1. It's going to be 3. And because it's row number 3, I need to have 3 elements, so I'll have to work on this third element of this row. It's going to be the previous column is 3, so current row and the previous row, so 3 plus 2 is going to be 5. Similarly, go on for row number 4. So the last element of the previous row is 5, so that will become my first element. And the second element of this row 4 is going to be the sum of these two. So 2 plus 5 is 7. Similarly, the third element of this row is going to be the sum of 7 plus 3, which is 10. And the last element of this is going to be 10 plus 5, it's going to be 15. So you get the idea. That's the pattern. So let's try to write a function that if we pass the row count, and it should give me some triangle like this. So let's call it generate bell triangle. I don't know whether there is something called bell triangle. I call it for the convenience bell triangle. So what I expect in this method is the count rows, how many rows you want in this triangle. So that's what you pass in here. And since we know the first row have just one element, and that's 1, so I'll hard code that value. So I'll say bell triangle, and the structure I'm proposing for this bell triangle is going to be an array ref of array ref. So that's my row 1 with 1 element, which is 1. So that's my first element. Now I'm going to do is I'm going to just go through for loop for each row, which is 1, because you already have the first element, so it's going to start with the second index, which is 1, till 1 less than the count. So if we pass in 10, so it should run 1 to 9, because you already have 1 there. So that's my rows, and for each row you need to have number of element in each row is same as the row number. So my column is going to be starting from 0 till R. Yep. And then now it'll start try to populate the row. So we already got the row 1, so we're thinking about the row 2. So the first element of row 2, which is index 1, is gonna be, so you have to think, if it is the first element you are populating, you have to fetch the last element of the previous row. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is, if this is the column is 0, i.e. you are populating the first index, what you're doing is you're populating this row, which is 1, the second row, 0 index is gonna be the last element of the previous row. So bt, the last row is gonna be row -1, previous row, and I'll say -1, which give me the last element of the previous row. That's my first element. If it is not the first element, then the rule is $R $C is you add the previous column of the current row and the previous column of the previous row. So it's going to be bt current row but previous column, C-1, plus bt previous row, which is R-1, and the column is C-1. Yep. So that's how you do it. And then you close the column and then you close the row. That's my bell triangle. Now once you have the bell triangle, the bell number is easy to calculate. The bell triangle numbers are the first element of each row will be my bell numbers. So since the task is to find the first 10 numbers, so I need to create a bell triangle with 10 rows, and then I can pull the first element of all the 10 rows, and that would be my first 10 bell numbers. So this will give me the bell triangle. Let's create another subroutine which gives me the bell number using this triangle. So generate bell numbers, and I'm going to pass the count, how many bell numbers I want. So I say count is my input parameter, and first thing I'm going to do is, in this method I'll say first generate the bell triangle, because that's important. So generate bell triangle and passing the count, because that's many rows you want to have in your triangle. Once you have the triangle, let's create a placeholder to store the bell number, which is in a reference to a list. And then I'm going to push the first element of each row. So I'm going to say push at bn is going to be bt $0 underscore and 0, the first element, for 0 dot minus count, so 1 less to the count, so from 0 to 9 if it count is 10. So that is my bell numbers, and then finally return $bn. Yeah, so that's my bell numbers. So let's try to put some test. So for now, because I'm comparing a structure, I'll again use test deep for comparing the data structure. It's handy, and as you know, there's a function called isDeeply to compare the structure. So what I'm going to do is gen bell numbers, how many? 10 bell numbers. And what do I expect? I'm expecting a list array ref 1 1 2 5 15 52 202, 203. I hope I'm not wrong. 877. Yes. And what else? I think it's 4140 if I'm not mistaken, and the last number is gonna be 21147. I hope I'm not wrong. So let's see. Test will gonna fail if so. Let's run this test and hopefully it should work. Perfect. So now see if we can make it any simpler. I think I can simplify these three lines. Okay, so let's see. So what I'm gonna do is let's say copy these three lines and just to comment dot and then play with some comics. So what I'm doing is I'm gonna say, so if C is 0, then do this, perform this action, and then just move on to the next element. How about this? Else you do this. Looks clean to me. Hopefully it didn't break the test. So let's run the test again. Okay, so it still passes. So I can get rid of these 4 lines, and that's my simplified version. And let's run the test again. All good. So that is my solution to the bell number task of week 108. I hope you like my solution. Please do comment your ideas, and if you like my video, please subscribe to my channel and share with your friends. Thank you for watching my video.